Hello everyone, this is 6th lesson of chapter 8, solving x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. In this lesson, you will factor trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c and later solve equation using zero product property. To factor a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c, find the two integers, let's say m and p, whose sum is equal to b and whose product is equal to c. So for example, if you have x squared plus 6x plus 8, you're trying to find what are the two numbers that is equal to 6, what is the same number when you multiply it equals to 8. So in this case, if you had 2 and 4, such as 2 is your m and 4 is your p, when you're adding 2 plus 4, you will get 6, that's your b value. And then when you multiply 2 times 4, you'll get your c value, which is 8. The first example is when b and c are positive. Part A, factor trinomial x squared plus 7x plus 12. This is following the form x squared plus bx plus c. If I had a chart, I'm looking for what are the two numbers when I multiply, I will get c, and when I add them, I will get the b value. In this case, I'm looking for the number 12. So the first combination is when I had 1 with 12, that will make it 12 when I multiply them. 2 and 6 will be also another combination. The last one I can think of is when I had 3 and 4. At this time, I'm going to add these two numbers to see if I can get the b value. 1 plus 12 is equal to 13, which is not what I'm looking for. 2 plus 6 is equal to 8. 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. So since I'm looking for the b value as 7, this combination right here, 3 and 4, will be my possible answer. And let me write this one down as when you had x times x, they will make it equal to x squared. So my two numbers are when you have positive 3 and when you have positive 4. This will be the factor form of x squared plus 7x plus 12. Just to double check, you can always distribute. So x times x will be equal to x squared. X times 4 will be equal to 4x. 3 times x is equal to 3x. And then 3 times 4, I will get 12. If you simplify this, you will get x squared plus 7x is equal to 12, which is what I began with. And that's how I know this is the answer of the factor form. Part B, when you are factoring x squared plus 3x plus 2, the same steps we are going to think about. First, I need to have two x's, so x times x will equal to x squared. Now you're going to think about what are the two numbers when you multiply you get 2. The first combination that comes to my mind is when I had 1 and 2. Also, if you add them, I need to get the b value, which is 3, and that will be true if you had 1 and 2. So my answer will be when you had x plus 1 and times x plus 2. I know these are plus because these are my positive numbers. Again, if you want to double check, you can always distribute, and you will get x squared plus 3x plus 2. Example number 2 is when b is negative while c is positive. So we're just looking at the other examples. First, I'm going to write two x's on here, so I know that I need x times x to get x squared. The two combinations that I could think about are when you had 1 with 27, 3 with 9, and those are the numbers that I could think about right now. And when I add 1 plus 27, this is equal to 28. When I add 3 plus 9, this is equal to 12. So this is a very close number that I was looking for in here, except I'm looking for negative 12. And then if I change these numbers to negative, so if I had negative 3 with negative 9, when I multiply them, I will still get positive 27, and when I add them, I will get negative 12. So that's how I know if I had negative 3 and negative 9, that will make positive 27 if I multiply. If I add them, I'll get negative 12. So when you write the answer, you will write x minus 3 this time and x minus 9. And that's how I know this is the factor form of x squared minus 12x plus 27. Part B, if I want to factor this one, again, I'm going to keep write x times x will get x squared. The two numbers, when you multiply, you have to get 16, but when you add them, I have to get negative 10. If I have 2 and 8, they multiply to get 16, and when I add them, I will get 10. Except, again, this time you're looking for the negative 10. The quick way is if you change them to both negatives, they will still become positive when you multiply them. When you add them, they keep the negative, so they will become negative 10. And that's how I know x minus 2 times x minus 8 is going to be my factor form. If I distribute this, x times x will get me x squared. X times negative 8 will be negative 8x. Negative 2 times x is equal to negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 8 is positive 16. When you simplify this, you will get x squared minus 10x plus 16, which is the same expression as what you started with. Example 3, if your C value is negative, that tells me if you had number A and B, at least one of them has to be negative in order to result negative answer. You cannot have two negatives because if you have negative times negative, that will result positive answer. On here, if you want to have x squared, I need to have two x's to be multiplied. Now think about two numbers. When you multiply, you get negative 18, while when you add them, I have to get 3. If I had negative 6 with 3, when I multiply them, I'll get negative 18. However, when I add negative 6 plus 3, my result will be negative 3, not positive 3. So in this case, what I'm going to do is instead of having negative 6, what if I had positive 6 multiplied with negative 3? 6 times negative 3 will still be negative 18. And now when I add them, 6 minus 3 will equal to positive 3. And that's how I know if you had x plus 6 times x minus 3, it will result this expression. Part B. Again, you're going to think about what two numbers do you need to multiply to get negative 20, while when you add them, I will get negative 1 this time. So one more time, x times x will get x squared. Two numbers, when you multiply, you get negative 20. I could have come up with 4 and 5. In order to make it negative, if I had negative 4 plus 5 will be positive 1. Instead, I need to have negative. So if I put negative 1 here, 4 plus negative 5 will be equal to negative 1. And that's how I know x plus 4 times x minus 5 will be the factor form of x squared minus x minus 20. Part C, I'm trying to think what two numbers do you need to multiply to get negative 24. To make it a little bit easier, on the side, let me just write with the positive 24. Just think about what are the two numbers when you multiply, you'll get 24. In this case, I could come with 1 and 24, 2, 12, 3, 8, 4, and 6. Now that you know that you're actually looking for negative 24, eventually when you add them, you're looking for the difference. So I need to find what will be the difference of the two numbers. The difference of 1 and 24 is 23, whether it could be positive or negative. 2 and 12, the difference is 10. 3 and 8 is 5. 4 and 6 is 2, knowing that they could be either positive or negative. Now in here, since you're looking for negative 5, I notice if I had a combination with 3 and 8, it will make 5. So in here, x times x, and I'm going to write 3 and 8. I just need to figure out which number has to be negative. If you put negative on 3, when you add them, you will get positive 5, where I'm looking for negative. So in here, if I put it on this side instead, 3 plus negative 8 will become negative 5, and that's how I know x plus 3 times x minus 8 will be the factor form of this expression. If you distribute, I will get x squared minus 8x plus 3x minus 24. Thus, x squared minus 5x minus 24, and this is the expression that you started with. Now you learned how to factor trinomial. Zero product property can be used to solve equation. While example 1 to 3 were expressions, example 4 is solving equation. In order to solve this equation, you'll be using zero product property. The first step in order to use zero product property is that your expression has to equal to 0. And the second step was you have to have a factor form because you need to have a product. I will begin by subtracting this 15 on both sides. So if I subtract, x squared plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. Now if I factor this form, x times x will get you x squared. If I had 5 and 3, when I multiply, I will get positive 15. And if you want to have positive 2 when you're adding them with one negative, I have to have negative on smaller number. So when I have 5 plus negative 3, I'll get positive 2. And double check, 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So in this case, if you had x plus 5 times x minus 3, you will get this expression back, and that's equal to 0. So on here, if I'm using zero product property, I know that this term has to equal to 0, or this term has to equal to 0. If I want to have x plus 5 is equal to 0, x has to equal to negative 5, which is the inverse of positive 5, or in this case, I have to have positive 3. So 3 minus 3 will be equal to 0. And that's how I know this is the answer of this equation. In order to check, plug in either numbers to your equation. So in this case, if I had negative 5 squared is positive 25, and plus 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, and that has to equal to 15, and that is actually true. If I plug in 3 times 3 will equal to 9, and 2 times 3, I will get 6. 9 plus 6 is also equal to 15, and that's how I know these two are truly my solution. Part B, we're going to repeat the similar steps. The first one, I'm going to subtract x on both sides. If you just write as it is, it will not be on standard form. So if I write x squared minus x minus 20, this is following x squared plus bx plus c equal to 0 format. Think about two numbers. When you multiply, I have to get negative 20, while when you add them, I get negative 1. The answer is, if you had negative 5 and positive 4, if you multiply them, you will get negative 20. When you add them, I will get negative 1. And keep in mind, I still need two x's on here. So if I write x minus 5 times x plus 4 is equal to 0, this is the beginning of zero product property. So if I have this one is equal to 0 or that one is equal to 0, when you multiply these two forms, they have to be equal to 0. So if I had x minus 5 is equal to 0, x has to equal to 5. X plus 4 is equal to 0. That means x has to equal to negative 4. So if you had 5 or negative 4, this will be the answer of the equation. Last example is on real world. Maria wants to build a new art studio that has 3 times the area of her old studio by increasing the length and width by the same amount. What should be the dimensions of the new studio? If I go back to the problem, it was saying Maria wants to build new art that is 3 times the area of her old studio, and she is going to increase by certain number. Then new area is equal to 3 times the old area. By looking at the picture, the old area is right here. It's 12 by 10. In order to find the area of a rectangle, you'll be multiplying to length. In this case, 12 times 10 will be your old area. And keep in mind, the 3 comes down in here. In order to find the new area, you are looking for the whole length right here. So this whole length can be found by when you're adding x plus 12. The new area is when you had x plus 12. You're going to multiply this with your width, in this case, 10 plus x. For the next step, let's simplify by distributing these two terms. X times 10 is 10x. X times x is x squared. 12 times 10, 120. 12 times x is 12x. I don't like to write in standard form so that later it will be following x squared plus bx plus c. X squared plus 10x plus 12x, 24x, plus 120 has to equal to, if I simplify this, 3 times 12 times 10 is 120, and when I multiply them, I get 360. In order to solve this equation, you will be using zero product property where I need this one to equal to 0. Thus, I'm going to subtract 360 on both sides, and that's going to equal to x squared plus 24x minus 240, that's equal to 0. Think about two numbers. When you multiply, I'll get negative 240, while when you add those two numbers, I have to get positive 24. There could be many combinations, but the answer on this one is when you have 30 with negative 8. 30 times negative 8 is equal to negative 240, while when you add them, I'll get positive 24. So if I had x plus 30 times x minus 8 is equal to 0, this will be the beginning of using ZPP. So if I solve this part where x plus 30 has to equal to 0, x is equal to negative 30 in order to make this one 0, or when you had positive 8, this one has to equal to 0 as well. Since this is a real life example, you will never have negative 30 as the length, so I know that my number has to be positive. In this case, x is equal to 8 is the only answer. This is the end of the lesson. Thanks for learning with me. If you have any questions or if you want more examples, please leave a comment.